Specialized AI tools can be extremely useful and are already changing our political economy, supporting our creativity, and augmenting our ability to do science. But for a long time, researchers have dreamed of the idea of bringing together all the specialized tools into one general tool that is as ingenious and adaptable as the human mind, an artificial general intelligence, or AGI, which then might improve itself further to become a powerful superintelligence. But we've seen this corrupting desire to acquire awesomely powerful tools play out many times before in our stories and myths, including in the Marvel Comics universe, where a series of extraordinary specialized tools are introduced, but then Thanos goes on a quest to bring together all of the Infinity Stones that power these tools to complete the Infinity Gauntlet, a general tool with godlike powers. So if we continue our quest to build an AGI, and it becomes superintelligent, how powerful will it be, and who will wield that power? Okay, so there's a huge gap between, say, generating pretty pictures and controlling the fabric of reality. But I think this analogy captures well the concerns that many have when they see anyone questing to construct such an awesomely powerful tool. Many capitalists might respond by saying that they just want to create a machine that can replace all of the expensive human labour. Just. They don't want to make a superintelligent god who could dominate them. They just need human-level AGI. And similarly, most scientists also don't want to make a god. They just want to understand the mysteries of the universe and the human mind. And they'll learn so much more by building an AGI that can help them. And that's probably the case. The problem, as outlined by Nick Bostrom in his book Superintelligence, is that it's hard to imagine how you could build and deploy human-level AGIs, but then stop all further advancements of their cognitive capabilities. Indeed, as Bostrom himself notes, way back in 1965, the mathematician I.J. Good, who had worked with Alan Turing, wrote, "Let an ultra-intelligent machine be defined as a machine that can far surpass all the intellectual activities of any man, however clever. Since the design of machines is one of these intellectual activities, an ultra-intelligent machine could design even better machines. There would then unquestionably be an intelligence explosion, and the intelligence of man would be left far behind. Thus, the first ultra-intelligent machine is the last invention that man need ever make, provided that the machine is docile enough to tell us how to keep it under control." This, from nearly 60 years ago, captures succinctly the core ideas, opportunities, and concerns of what we now call superintelligence. In this video, I'm going to explore these ideas with Bostrom's book as one of our guides, and try to unpick which parts of these ideas are plausible descriptions of what could happen soon, and which are more like speculative sci-fi. When Bostrom wrote Superintelligence back in 2014, this fear of AI's dominating humanity was taken as a slightly fringe, non-serious viewpoint. But recently, that has been changing, with ever more serious researchers in the field of AI also starting to get worried about the dangers and calling for some sort of regulation of AI to mitigate the risks. And the reason is simple. There seems to be almost universal surprise at how fast recent progress in AI has been, with some even going so far as to suggest that with the latest trained algorithms, such as ChatGPT using GPT-4, we're seeing the first sparks of AGI, sparks that could soon light the fuse of the intelligence explosion. Of course, not everyone shares this assessment. It's not yet clear if we're just in a sort of sophisticated hall of mirrors, being scared by the shadows of our own intelligence reflected back to us, or if there are indeed the sparks of AGI in these latest tools. Either way, it's unnerving and has spooked some serious minds. One of the most striking examples of this comes from Geoffrey Hinton, one of the pioneers of the deep learning neural network approaches to AI, whose variants now underpin ChatGPT. He recently quit his job at Google precisely so that he could loudly raise his concerns about the rate of progress in AI and where that could be taking us. When asked by CNN what kind of regulation he thought would be appropriate, he answered,
"I'm not an expert on how to do regulation. I'm just a scientist who suddenly realized that these things are getting smarter than us. And I want to sort of blow the whistle and say we should worry seriously about how we stop these things getting control over us. And it's going to be very hard, and I don't have the solutions. I wish I did."
It's pretty sobering to hear someone like Hinton now also expressing such concerns. And just after filming this video, Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, published a blog post in which they said that now is the time to consider global governance of superintelligence. So if the prospect of AGI, and thereby superintelligence, is shifting from sci-fi to plausible reality, what are the real dangers? There's a great book, Super Forecasting, that is about highly skilled human forecasters that discusses in depth the limits of what we can reasonably forecast. And for everything other than well understood physical processes, the time limits for serious forecasts are pretty short. For human affairs, their evidence suggests that beyond about 5 years, all attempts at forecasts are really no better than guessing. So if we want to think about the plausible dangers that we should be actively worried about, then I think the timing of the danger matters to our assessment of the risk. But I recognise that this is at odds with some of the long-termist thinking by some of the most prominent voices in this area, like Nick Bostrom. With that in mind, I want to discuss 4 key dangers mentioned by Bostrom and others. The first is that authoritarian regimes or other bad actors will simply use super AIs to help them dominate others. This is already a concern today with our existing levels of AI, so greater intelligence will simply increase the impacts of this risk. And for this video, I'm including here everything from oppressive surveillance to AI weapons to disinformation and propaganda campaigns. So already, there's a lot of risk here. The second is that the existence of super AIs will completely upend our political economy, as so many humans will be unable to find paid-for work. The risk here is that we fail to rapidly find a new, fair political settlement to share out the benefits of a potentially huge material wealth generated by these super AIs. The resulting political turmoil between humans could get extremely violent, as so many have so much to lose. Notice that neither of these first 2 risks are about the superintelligence getting out of control and dominating all of humanity. There's nothing sci-fi about these first 2 risks. They're both just accelerations of trends that we already see today, and indeed have seen throughout the history of technological innovation. The third kind of danger is that superintelligent AIs inadvertently harm humans while trying to achieve some other goal. One way I've heard this described is to note that if we're building a road, then we wouldn't hesitate to clear away and thereby kill the occupants of an anthill that happen to be in the way. We don't do this maliciously, they're just in the way. And now, if we imagine us as the ants and the superintelligent machines wish to build some infrastructure over our house, they may clear us away with exactly the same indifference. And the idea goes, we'd be so cognitively inferior to the superintelligences that we'd be as helpless to stop this as the ants are to humans. The fourth danger is that the superintelligences explicitly decide to harm or exterminate humanity, and again, there'd be little we could do about it. And some people worry that this domination of humanity will happen extremely fast once the intelligence explosion begins. This is what Eliezer Yudkowsky refers to as the foom scenario. Now, the plausibility of these last 2 kinds of existential danger crucially depend on the speed of the intelligence explosion and on the superintelligences having the ability to act decisively in the physical world. For the moment, we're a long way from having robots that are able to fully build and maintain, say, a nuclear or gas power station, or a microchip fabrication plant, or a data center. And while robots are getting more capable, I would say that the prospect of having robots with the necessary human or superhuman levels of physical competence and dexterity is well beyond the plausible prediction horizon. So, for the moment, the AIs still need humans to keep the power on. We are still at the stage where we really could just pull the plug. These physical limits also mean it's unrealistic to suggest that an AI could design and build an improved faster microchip or quantum chip and start fabricating it at scale within hours or days or even months of reaching superintelligence. Moving atoms in the physical world takes time, and experimenting on new physics to build new chip designs, that also takes time. Now, some people might counter this and say, well, it's all pure software now. The superintelligence could just jump out of the original data center and escape into other machines. This just fails to understand why the latest AI algorithms are trained in data centers. For example, to train GPT-3, it took millions of dollars of compute time that some have estimated to be equivalent to thousands of top-of-the-range GPUs in a high-bandwidth cluster running flat out for about 4 months. And this training cluster would have needed access to the hundreds of billions of text tokens used to train the model. And that's before it was further trained with human feedback to make the original ChatGPT. So, for the current state-of-the-art AIs to be trained, it needs a high-quality, expensive, and what you might call dense computational environment. The superintelligence couldn't just distribute itself across millions of mobile phones or laptops and also do the algorithm training within days or hours. Training a new, large AI takes huge amounts of computational effort. And the compute within data centers is monitored and the electricity billed for. It would be extraordinarily lax for a data center to not notice that a whole cluster of thousands of GPUs were continuously burning through tons of data and electricity. So, yeah, we can imagine the idea of a rapid foom scenario that kills off all of humanity. But just because we can imagine it, that doesn't mean that it's at all realistic. And there are many other examples where people have suggested extraordinary sci-fi capabilities for these super AIs that just aren't credible. For example, in Bostrom's book, he imagines us using a boxed super AI called an oracle to work out whether or not we should turn on a more sophisticated, powerful, sovereign super AI. So he suggests that we ask the oracle to simulate the long-term future of the world if we were to turn on the sovereign, and then explain to us what would happen. The oracle could show pictures of what the future looks like, and provide statistics about the number of sentient beings that will exist at different times, along with average, peak, and lowest levels of well-being. But our existing knowledge of mathematics and physics suggests that this kind of long-term prediction is simply impossible. And yeah, we can imagine that the super AIs would find ways to overcome the limits from chaos theory and quantum mechanics and computational intractability, just to name a few of the known limits to such prediction. But these are some of our most solid, rational understandings about the world. So the idea that a super AI could overcome them all simply isn't rationally supported. It's pure, wishful sci-fi thinking. But remember, just because some of the concerns around superintelligence are these kinds of sci-fi style speculations, that doesn't mean that there are no plausible reasons to be concerned. At the very least, a superintelligence will be a significant force multiplier for whoever controls it. And that is why capitalists and existing centers of power are all questing to have their infinity gauntlet before anyone else does. As things stand, that doesn't bode well for most of us. And even if it's unrealistic to suggest that a superintelligence will escape our control within hours or days, that doesn't mean it never will. So I think that our current race towards AGI and thereby superintelligence doesn't sound like a wise trajectory. But what can we do about it? Okay, this may sound a bit silly, but I think it's really worth noting that if literally every human stopped working on improvements to AI, we would never get to AGI, let alone superintelligence. This isn't an unstoppable physical law of nature. Making further progress in AI is something that, at least for now, we humans are doing. So we shouldn't completely dismiss our agency in the situation. Of course, it's extremely hard to imagine how we could coordinate a worldwide pause or meaningful regulation. But in theory, we really could do something to prevent or at least forestall the advent of AGI and thereby superintelligence. But most people in the field of AI talk as if the continued progress towards AGI is just inevitable, and the only question is when does it happen, not if. And that is why many people, including Bostrom in his book, talk about two key aspects of AI safety when it comes to the existential risks. The first is the control problem. How do we make sure that the AIs continue to follow our commands even as they become way smarter than us? Bostrom lists out a number of options for attempting this, including keeping them isolated in a box, stunting them so that they lack specific kinds of cognitive capabilities, and building in tripwires so that, for example, the power gets turned off if certain concerning conditions are met, such as spotting the AI trying to covertly escape. Secondly, there's the values alignment problem. How do we make sure that whenever the AIs are making decisions, they consider the consequences of their actions in a way that is in line with our values? Such alignment would both help prevent unintentional harm through indifference, but also, if the super AIs do escape our control, there's at least more chance that they'll remain aligned to our values and choose not to harm us, even though they could. Here again, Bostrom goes through a range of basic options, including directly specifying our values or rules, such as Asimov's 3 laws of robotics. Or a slightly more sophisticated approach is that we indirectly specify our values. For example, Yudkowsky has suggested that we could essentially ask the superintelligence to use its superior cognition to work out what we actually mean by asking it to stay aligned with our values. But the control problem and the alignment problem are each huge topics that I will try to explore more in other videos. But here, I'll just note a sobering aspect about both of them. While AI capabilities are racing towards AGI, no one has yet come up with any truly convincing solutions to either of these problems of existential AI safety. Indeed, let's listen again to what Geoffrey Hinton has been saying recently.
There are very few examples of a more intelligent thing being controlled by a less intelligent thing. And it knows how to program, so it'll figure out ways of getting around restrictions we put on it. It'll figure out ways of manipulating people to do what it wants.
So what do we do?
It's not clear to me that we can solve this problem. I believe we should put a big effort into thinking about ways to solve the problem.
That's not very reassuring. My thoughts on this are that since we don't yet know how to handle it, we should be looking for ways to delay the point where we get to the runaway intelligence explosion. A real explosion requires multiple ingredients to happen, not just explosives, but also a spark and oxygen. So I've been wondering if, rather than aiming for a complete pause on all AI progress, we instead focus on removing one of the necessary ingredients. Or in terms of the infinity gauntlet, we should hold back one of the stones. We should hold back the ability of the AI to self-improve its own algorithm. Let me briefly explain. If we think about the algorithm that allows, say, a Tesla car to drive autonomously, we may well say that this algorithm has some level of agency to be able to autonomously follow the high-level goals necessary to drive to your destination. But the algorithm on the car has no capability to improve itself in an open-ended way. You could say it has no meta-level agency. And there's no reason that Tesla would want it to have this kind of open-ended ability to change its behavior. Quite the opposite. To be confident in the car's safety and capabilities, the algorithm on the car needs to be very stable and predictable. And even if we don't want bad actors to be using advanced AI, they too are going to want to be confident that their AIs will remain focused on doing just what they ask them to do. The ability to self-improve your own algorithm in an open-ended way, what you could call meta-level agency, is so unpredictable that it's an undesirable feature for most real-world applications of AI, and yet it's also one of the necessary ingredients for the intelligence explosion. So that is the feature I think we should be heavily regulating until we've learned more about what we're doing. And I'm planning to do a video exploring the suggestion in more depth. So overall, I think the ideas around superintelligence are a bit of a mixed bag between sci-fi and plausible speculations. And while I don't think we need to be worried about some of the most rapid existential threats suggested by foom scenarios, I do think there are already plenty of reasons to be concerned about the way society further develops and deploys AI, let alone AGIs and then superintelligence. And don't get me wrong, I too am fascinated by the idea of us building an AGI. I just don't think we should be in any hurry to do so. For now, it looks like the known risks outweigh the imagined benefits. But what do you think about the risks and potential benefits of creating a superintelligence? Do you think we should be pressing ahead or slowing down? Please do carry on the discussion in the comments below, and subscribe to my channel if you'd be interested in more videos like this. Thank you for watching.